I don't know if you remember, Clay, but back in season 1, there was a lot of stuff that I was reading in the oral history of Star Trek Enterprise, where the writers were saying that Star Trek Enterprise was going to be the prequel that was before Starfleet got all stuffy. There was going to be sex. People were going to be having conflict.
You're goddamn right there's going to be sex.
Most
Otherwise,
importantly,
we're not doing the show. Brannon, write it down.
Rick, control yourself. Rick. There was going to be sex.
All I want is I just want at some point Phlox to say, "You're disturbing my serum."
Brannon, can he just inject the serum into her and just get it over with and make sure that this all works? There was going to be sex in Enterprise. This is sex in Enterprise, and we are all the better. We're all the better. Yeah. Well, it's the color of blue is very appropriate for what's going on in that decontamination chamber, I think. But we're up to Bounty, which is not just a quicker picker-upper. It's an episode of Star Trek. We're going to come back after we play a clip. We're going to break down the very, very exciting, yet very boring episode that is Bounty. We'll take a break now.
What are you doing?
You said we'd need another treatment.
Not for 3 hours.
Is there any harm in starting now?
I can apply it myself. Thank you. Perhaps you need another sedative.
Rest is not what I need.
Sub-Commander, this behavior is hardly appropriate.
My name is DePaul. You don't find me attractive?
Of course I do, but that is not the issue.
I'm familiar with denobulant sexuality. I know that your marriages aren't exclusive.
You and I are colleagues. It's against regulations.
Starfleet regulations. There's no reason to be restrained by human morality.
It's obvious you're not well. Please.
Bounty is the 25th penultimate episode of the second season. We only have one more to go. The season finale next week.
I wanted to call it Bosom, but they wouldn't go for it.
Booty. First aired on the 14th
yeah.
of May, 2003. It is the second of 3 in the Archer's trial by the Klingons arc, so this does come back for a finale at some point. Teleplay goes to Hans Tobiasen, I think, and Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong. Story credit goes to Rick Berman and Brennan Braga, directed by Roxanne Dawson. In-universe date is March 21, 2153. In this episode, Archer is captured by a Tellarite bounty hunter who plans to hand him over to the Klingons. A microbe induces the pond farr in T'Pol, who finds herself confined to the decon chamber with Phlox. She does. Which storyline do we get out of the way first? Or do you think they're equally important to talk about here? Do you want to get Archer's out of the way first? There's probably more to talk about with T'Pol than there is Archer.
Sure.
The Tellarites make their first appearance. Wazoo. That's big for Star Trek continuity and everything like that.
Good makeup. I thought the makeup was really good.
The Tellarites always look really good. They look a little bit more pig-like in the original series, but he looks suitably piggish in this one. He's not piggish at heart, though. He's a good guy. The Archer thing is funny. The Archer storyline to me is quintessential Enterprise storytelling to this point. It's like, I think we talked about it in the last episode. They have a real problem getting to a next gear in what's the next exciting step for this story to take. And Archer gets captured by a bounty hunter here pretty easily. Archer and Trip look pretty stupid, all things considered.
Did he not learn anything from the cogenitor? Where when alien races you've never met show up and are like, you should come take a tour of our ship, everything will be fine. It ends up not being fine.
Yeah, a lot of ship touring here. A lot of let me show you around the place. I don't know. He gets captured. It's all fine. It's just this really middling conflict the whole time, where it's like, they add pieces, like the Tellarite has trying to get his ship back, and his brother or whatever that guy is doesn't like him, and he's lonely, and he just wants to make right in the world, and Archer can kind of feel bad about him. He's not a heartless bounty hunter. He feels bad about sending him to the Klingons, and then he just lets him go.
They also have that other alien that looks like one of the bad guys from the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie, who they just maroon on a planet somewhere.
Oh, the other bounty hunter. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just missing something. It's perfectly fine, but there's nothing to it really. It's just, you keep expecting some kind of conflict or deep conversation to happen between Archer and the guy, and it just never comes. I think one of Enterprise's critical flaws, at least to this point, is that it just its workmanlike quality really prevents it in a lot of ways from figuring out what an episode is supposed to be about or storyline is supposed to be about, and they all just kind of feel the same because they don't have a singular focus about this is what the issue of this storyline is, and it gets a little bit tiresome after a while. This one felt, I enjoyed Archer's storyline for what it was. I like the alien design and the ship design and the prison bar design with the glowing yellow bars and everything, but it's just, who cares about, this is a who cares story.
Yeah, it's a pretty surface level action story with not a lot going on. The Tellarite story, I actually kind of found I thought there was some potential there to tell kind of an interesting story as far as the bounty hunter who isn't just Tommy Lee Jones from The Fugitive. You can get to him a little bit, and he's doing it for a specific reason. And weirdly enough, I actually really liked the scene with his brother where they kind of had this breakdown of the thing this guy was after. And even though we weren't really following, we didn't see any of that stuff, it was just a well-played scene between the two actors that I believed what they were talking about.
The one where they close it with, he's like, you don't even recognize the ship anymore. He's like, what did they do to my engines?
Yeah. I was kind of into it to a certain extent, but I don't know. There's nothing linked to any of that stuff to explain why Archer gets through to this guy, and what's the thing that made him decide that Archer maybe should be let go and that he should pull one over on the Klingons.
Yep.
Other than the fact that the Klingons destroyed the ship, which, I mean, if that's the thing he's at, maybe that's enough. I don't know, but it didn't feel like enough.
Yeah, he never makes that realization, I don't think, about it. It's just
and also, still, if you look at it from his point of view, he doesn't fucking know if Archer is innocent or not, and he still lets the guy go after a fairly unconvincing. He already tried to escape once by busting the guy's
melting the engine or whatever he was doing.
Yeah. I don't really know if Archer did enough to convince me that he wasn't guilty of what he was being accused of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. The storyline doesn't focus on Archer trying to convince the guy of anything. It doesn't focus on the guy's struggle as a forced into bounty hunting because he lost his ship. It's all there, but none of it is this is the primary focus of what it's supposed to be. And it's funny that I would have expected the conflict between them to be the what Trip talks about. I think it's Trip. When Trip says goodbye to Archer or whatever, he explains the one thing that we know about the Tellarites, besides the fact that they look like pigs, is that they do like to argue. That's the one thing we know about Tellarites, which is from some series down the line. I thought it was going to be an entire episode of Archer having to convince a guy who likes to argue that he's innocent, and they would have a lot of arguments about what that meant and things like that.
That would have been fun.
That doesn't really happen. It's not, it's not like the Monty Python Ministry of or Argument Clinic or whatever that sketch is. There's nothing alien about what Archer is going through. There's just a bounty hunter who has the heart of gold that's going to let him go at the end. And it's so rote and predictable. And, not a single scene of that one goes by where you're like, I didn't predict this was going to happen, or that's an interesting scene. It's just it's just there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's a fairly beat by beat action thing, and
would you even call it action?
I mean, the fact that their action is happening, I guess, with this flying around and there's ship shooting and stuff, and they're, you got to let me out of here so I can fly the plane. You can't fly and fix at the same time.
Yeah.
But even the Enterprise is being pretty lax about this plot. It's they're trying to find Archer, but they don't feel like they're racing against the clock that much or anything. They get to that planet and Trip is even like, "Hi, sorry to bother you. Did you happen to see a ship maybe come through?" There's no
right, no urgency.
There's no urgency to what's going on, and I don't know. It's just it's not a lot of there's not a second level of tension ratcheted up in the story. It's just Archer gets captured. He's going to get delivered to the Klingons or not.
Right.
There's not like there's no secondary thing except for when he tries to escape on the Klingon ship, which, man, that was a hell of a plan to try and pull off. Counting on that guy not screwing him over with a lockpick case and then being able to fist fight a Klingon, which I don't think he's ever done before.
Yeah.
And the Klingons, as we know after 50 years of Star Trek history, are known for being very difficult to fight.
My favorite move is he jumps and rolls on the ground as two Klingons shoot at him and dodge, and he hits both of them dead shot with his two shots. He just nails them. It's excellent.
It's like he falls to the floor and rolls before like they even get into the scene.
Yeah.
So like he stopped rolling before. Usually you do that as they're shooting to avoid the shots, but he does that before they start shooting. So he stopped moving by the time they've got their guns out. So he's really done nothing, but he apparently manages to get the drop on them.
He's just a dead eye. He just nukes those guys, takes them out. The Klingons just can't handle it. Yeah, and he beats another guy to death, I assume, with his handcuffs or whatever to get out of there.
I mean, the Tellarite guy was right. They're just racking up bounty on this guy. If he's killed like 4 people on a Klingon ship at this point, on top of the other stuff, now he's literally is guilty of murder.
His if this is Red Dead Redemption, his little bounty meter is just going up. It's like $500 at this point, and random cowboys.
And he didn't even accidentally shoot a ranch hand or anything.
Right.
Like I've done more than once in that game.
It's too many confusing buttons. You can't remember that. Get off your horses, draw your gun, and shoot the guy in front of you in the face. It's all very confusing. That's it. I mean, that's it for the Tellarite thing. This is mostly an episode that's about T'Pol and the Phlox storyline, I think.
Well, it was weird to me, actually, because they both felt kind of equally unimportant. It kind of felt like an episode with 2 B plots, honestly.
Yep.
Because even the T'Pol thing doesn't really have a meaning to the story they're telling, other than this virus accidentally made her super horny for a few hours.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like
one isn't taking the lead in this dance, really. You know, it's like one storyline is not really. It's just the Enterprise is chasing after Archer, and T'Pol is stuck in the decon chamber on Enterprise, really. And it's not even. It's a weird disconnect that they aren't even missed in this mission. You know, it's like Trip isn't on the bridge going, I wish T'Pol was around to tell me what the hell's going on. Yeah. He brings her food during the middle of it, you know, and it's like, it's a very casual, disconnected. And that's probably the problem with some of the T'Pol. I mean, it's one of many of the problems with the T'Pol stuff, but it's the fact that she's incapacitated has nothing to do with rescuing Archer. There's no, there's no, layered story conflict on top of that. It's just a awkward comedy type setup. And I think the first thing to get out of the way of the T'Pol storyline is they get away with a lot. They get away with a lot because they don't define the word mate and what mate means in this context.
Right.
Does she have to orgasm? Like, is it just the act of having sex? Do they have to have a kid?
Brannon, you're reading my mind, asking the questions that I think we should answer.
There's
questions I've been thinking about for 50 years.
there's like not even a tension of, oh Jesus, Phlox, like when a female Vulcan's in Pon Farr, you have to hit it doggy style as hard as you can for 57 minutes. You know, there's no pressure on, like, what if he just 2-pump jumps it? Is there a problem here? Like, I don't, you know, it's all a very stupid episode, but Phlox's reticence to do anything is kind of stupid in this. You know, like, I understand he has, I guess the metaphor is that she's drunk. Is it supposed to be that she's drunk and it's like a professional thing? But she will die if she doesn't have sex. And he's like, I can't give you the sex. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's also the horniest. He's also the horniest male character because he has multiple wives, and his species has been defined as he just has sex with everybody. So,
well, that's how they define it. But he very much seems to be a fairly
He says the male
denobulin.
denobulins or denobulins, I guess, or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
They're the reticent ones in this species.
His wife, on the other hand, very much so. But
Missing Mrs. Phlox in this, yeah.
Yes, yeah. If only. Oh my God! What if he introduced her to his wife? Oh boy! Do we have to wait 7 years to do this again?
What you think Phlox's actions here are understandable or like willing to drive this story?
I think it's all just very silly to begin with. Like,
it is.
Like you're saying, what constitutes mating,
Right.
and how does that stop her from dying, I guess?
Yeah, right. What's necessary to stop her from dying? Is it
Right.
insertion? Is it an orgasm?
Yeah.
Can she just go to town on herself in the corner
Yeah.
and Phlox sits there?
Just whip up some sort of marital aid or something for her to...
That's where the tricorder came from. It's this episode invented just for her pleasure. But that's on a story level, that's the problem with it. It's like, what's the stakes for Phlox? It's all built on this sort of puritanical, oh, Jesus, we're coworkers. I can't have sex with you to save your life, even though it will save your life. So there's no crux to that story. It's just a strange idea.
It's hamstrung a couple ways because they've similarly to the Archer storyline, there's no second act to it, really. Like, there's no escalation.
Once it escalates, there's no second level of something else happening, I guess.
It's not. Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, there's no, and the reason that is because the excuse to set it up the way they have is that she has some virus that if she gets out of decon too early, she could spread the virus to the rest of the ship. It's like, okay, well, that basically locks you into this room with the two of them. And what do you, if you're not going to do a character story with the two of them, then why are you doing this? It just turns into a bunch of sex jokes, which is basically what it is. Like, you don't learn anything about T'Pol, or you don't learn anything about Phlox and they don't connect it in any way, physically or otherwise, to really make it have much of a point. But you also don't do the thing where she gets out and starts like wreaking havoc on the ship, or like, you know,
she kind of does. She gets out.
Not really though. She
gives Reed a hard on for the ages.
Yeah, like, well, that's what I was like. I was surprised that they didn't do that. That's kind of what I was expecting, is more of her kind of going around the ship, essentially like sexually assaulting everybody, and seeing how the different characters and different people on the ship react to it.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. And then, like, at the end,
her like bacterial infection is like an STD in that sense. You know, it's kind of like if she gets other people sick, but they know she's out and that she's infected, so they approach her in those spacesuits the entire, like, every time they see her, they're in those suits.
As you should, a woman in the wild.
Yeah.
But the other way they go with it, like, she doesn't remember anything that happened. And like, I was surprised that she was not more put off when she was like, did we? And Phlox is like, well, I'm not going to tell you that. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you're not going to tell her?
Phlox with the power play right there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, he may as well have assaulted her at that point. You know?
He won't fuck her to save her life, but he'll lie to her and imply that he did have sex with her, and it's a power play over her for the rest of the crew. Yeah.
Imagine waking up at someone's house and that, like, someone, either if you know them or if you don't, and then you're like, did we have sex? And they're like, oh, I'm not going to tell you. Like,
his secret's safe with me.
Yeah, he's a doctor who won't cross the line to actually do it, but then afterwards he won't confirm that they didn't. Because, you know, he's got to tell all of his friends that he did. He's got to look like a big man on campus down at the he's got to tell all the slugs in his aquariums that he totally did it.
Yeah, I think the Phlox I don't find Phlox's rationale believable in any sense of this, and it stems from the fact that they don't define what mating is, because it's a silly kind of idea. Like, it's a very 60s idea where mating in the original series just meant sex, really. You know, and it's like you're kind of bound by those values of that era where sex is just enough. This is,
did you Did you ever see the movie Hall Pass?
Who's in it? Is that a modern one?
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis
Yes,
and
yes.
Owen Wilson.
Yes, yeah.
You remember? I'm not going to explain what it is, but if you haven't seen it, you can look it up for yourselves. But do you remember when he explains what the fake chow is?
No, I don't think so. Maybe I haven't seen this one.
Look that up. My point is, he could have done that, I guess.
Sure. I would actually. I don't really understand why it's Phlox in there with her.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Isn't a human better?
Well, I liked the pairing actually because it seems like a natural pairing because he's so kind of like, weird and kind of wriggly and about stuff and kind of has an interesting odd manner, but
he's so open. He's the most open. He's the most open to experimentation. That's his like defining characteristic. He's like, I'm just out here absorbing new cultures and doing whatever the hell is going on. So he just seems the wrong choice to be the prude in this case. Like it's a human hang up, I would think.
Sure. Well, I wonder if the intention was that he doesn't know what Ponfar is. So I wonder if the intention is that he's not totally sure that what she's saying is legit. So he doesn't want to like take advantage of her only to find out that it was the virus just fucking with her head.
Right.
Even though she does explain it to him as something that is real, that does happen to Vulcans. But even still, it's like, is this really the best time to test this out? Yeah, it is weird because I mean, like, I can't imagine. Do you think any other Doctor character in Star Trek would have been like, well, lay down?
Well, they've never been presented with the option. Yeah.
What's that?
Well, they've just never been presented with the option. I just. I think that's why it doesn't work. Like the story itself doesn't work for Star Trek because the logical out of this story is not suitable for family television. So they have to just make it a hang up. Honestly,
I bet Crusher would.
Would that count?
She wasn't born with that.
Is it just enough? Like is it just enough to go down on each other or something? Like is this solve Ponfar for people? I just don't think that the way that you make it kind of interesting is that like you have to a little bit divorce Ponfar from this sexual angle and just be like Vulcans every once in a while lose their emotional control and they revert to their earlier form, which is this like hysterical sort of emotional species. And the danger is that Vulcans are strong and he's locked in this box with a more and more irrational T'Pol who's losing control.
Death by snoo, as they say.
They're not Futurama. They're not going to have sex or anything like that. But he's like you're trapped in a elevator with like American Werewolf in Paris, sort of like it's just like this change that's happening.
Oh, if we're gonna go there, let's go London, not Paris.
Sure. So I think that's like the only way to do it. I don't even know if that's interesting, really. Like Phlox is in danger of getting his head bashed in by T'Pol while they're in the decon chamber. Yeah. But I just watching it is so tough. It's just like good for Jolene Blaylock, but this episode, like the directors are just like more lube on your legs, more lube on your legs.
I
sit on his lap, straddle him.
It was what's her the woman from Voyager directed this, right?
Yeah, Roxanne Dawson.
Yeah. I wonder if they would have shot this the same way if a man had done it.
It's true. It's a good point.
Every time they do like a sexy close-up of Jolene Blaylock lubing up her thighs, they cut to the exact same shot of Phlox's weird looking legs and shit. Like it was hilarious. It was like it was the one time they've done that in the show where I was legitimately like, okay, they're definitely playing this for titillation, but also as a joke.
Yeah, I don't think the joke lands.
Well, I think what's missing though is like, I think it would probably have been more successful if it was less about just she needs to screw someone or she's going to die, and more turn it into one of those like, you need to lock me in a cage. No matter what I say, don't let me out. And then the person is saying everything they can to try to convince you to let them out of the cage.
Right.
Like that kind of thing, which they never really do because they don't really get past the sex stuff. It basically is stuck just there. And in doing that, you're only doing it for titillation's sake. You're not learning anything about the Vulcans or T'Pol, or is she I mean, she seems pretty conscious of her Vulcanness not getting corrupted and stuff. Is she afraid of Farr because it means she's going to lose control of her emotions?
Yeah.
You know, what does that mean for her as a character? I think that stuff could be really interesting. But, you know, or she can run around in a sweaty tank top for 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's
no complaints.
It's a choice that it's her first time undergoing Farr too. So she kind of knows what it is and kind of doesn't at the same time. I was glad.
I mean, that's actually really interesting too, because she's being presented with an aspect of her culture that she has no experience with.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's someone who's very put together generally, but she's presented with this thing that is inevitable, that clearly has some intense effects, that is now happening ahead of schedule in front of a bunch of people she would probably prefer it not happen in front of. She always imagined when she finally had Farr, it would be in a nicely lit room with candles everywhere and stuff.
It's never
not stuck in an elevator with you.
It's never the case. Yeah. I don't know if there's any space that you can really move it into. It's like a metaphor for becoming a woman or something. Feels stupid at that point too. There's like, you know, because they have to play it knowing what it is in the show, because it's too strange and way too specific to not identify it as Farr. Like it's just so limited into this sex angle that it's like that's what the whole point of it is, and you just can't tell a story that with such a limited direction and what this outcome is for her. I just find, like, if they were trying to do it as a comedy, I don't think any of the comedy outside of the fact that Phlox being paired, like that Billingsley being paired next to her, is just funny in and of itself, just because, you know, he don't put up the little shower curtain between them as like an installation into his decon chamber. But outside of that, it's not. It's just awkward.
They don't put anybody in there with her who like definitely would, but knows he shouldn't. So like he's fighting something, is, you know what I mean? Like Phlox clearly is not really interested in trying to be professional, but like if you put Reed or Trip in there with her, they're probably going to think about it at least.
Yeah, there's no downside to doing it is the problem. It's like, it's not like it's some like Black Widow thing, like the female Vulcan mates with someone and then eats their head or something like that. You know, it's like there's no, it's only the act of having sex with her saves her life, and you have sex with her. There's no downside to it.
That's what I've been saying to everybody for years, Brannon.
That's Rick, there's no conflict in this story.
Could you tell that to my wife, please?
There's no downside, Rick, to what's going on. That's why it's such a,
boy, I hope he hears this someday.
That's why it's so kind of embarrassing as a script, I guess, because it's like this, it's a very juvenile male. I don't even know how I have no idea how, I really just honestly have a big problem with this script, because you can't get around the fact that fixing it is to have sex with her. That's, it's too adult of a Star Trek idea, really, to have. I would like, T'Pol undergoes Farr on a random planet and they lose track of her is something, you know? Sure. It's just the fact that she's stuck in this room is not great, and embarrassing for her as Jolene Blaylock, and it's also embarrassing for John Billingsley because, like, hey, you fat fuck, you're the weirdest one that we can pair her with. So you get in there and you can't have sex with her. Take that.
Yeah. That's why I think keeping them stuck in the room the whole time is a bit of a mistake, because if you're gonna have fun with it, and having fun with it would mean, how does everybody else on the ship react to this? Like, it's tough because you don't want to.
You just have to gyrate this. I want to interrupt, but like,
did you say gyrate?
I agree with let her loose, but also tone down the I want to straddle you and ride you.
Yeah.
Like,
because the thing is like, you don't want to come away. If let's say you do, obviously it's not a 1-to-1 because various reasons, but if you do want to liken it to someone getting blackout drunk or something like that, you don't want to come away with that person everybody not respecting her when she sleeps it off. You know what I mean? So like, if you have her running around the ship and like assaulting everybody, she's gonna feel pretty fucking bad about it, and everybody else is gonna kind of like give her the eye from now on. You don't want to do that because you don't want to devalue her as a person or a character like that. So it's really tough with this thing it's like, because it's at the end when she wakes up, she's like, I hope you won't tell anybody about what happened. And he's like, no, never. But everybody on the ship already knows. Like, everybody of consequence was there when they had to like phaser her to knock her out.
Was that after the scene where Archer's like, what the hell happened up here? And Malcolm's like, oh,
you picked the wrong day to get captured, sir.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's all just very weird because, like, you can't go so far as to be disrespectful to the actress or the character, or the character in the eyes of the other people on the ship and stuff. But is there room in there for T'Pol, being finally letting loose and dealing with that kind of thing? I don't know. I think you're right. I think they didn't really think it out past, wouldn't it be hilarious and sexy if T'Pol went through Pon farr?
Yeah, I mean,
stuck specifically in the decon chamber so she could rub glitter all over herself.
I think we talked about it in a previous episode. Like, if this was a more serialized story that was taking relationships on the ship seriously and was kind of being like, this is a crew that's not used to deep space exploration for a very long time, and there's a lot of feelings that are coming up, and the show has acknowledged that T'Pol is extremely attractive, and what do the men on this ship think? They've hinted at it, but the episode's always played off as if it's just like some sort of joke that goes into it. But if there was a sense that T'Pol was regarded as gorgeous by the male, or whoever's attracted to her, male or female characters on the ship, that they're like, T'Pol's Vulcanness is the interference in that relationship. Like, if she's a human female or whatever, it's a different approach than T'Pol's innately Vulcan outlook on life would allow for, in terms of how she looks and how she reacts to like relationships with people on the ship. And if this was the case of all the guys getting having their like T'Pol moment where they're falling for her, and then eventually this thing happens where she is now flipped, you still need some better reason, I think. But like, there's a development there where you're building this T'Pol character and the male relationships with her, and then Pon farr comes along and it screws up the relationship that everyone had to that point. There's something there, but it's still not enough.
How did they handle this on the original series?
Curing Pon farr, or just doing like Spock had to fight for Spock fought Kirk.
So it wasn't explicitly a sex thing. It was just like
it was the intent to mate, but I don't think he like busts a nut and then they call it. It's like, I think that it's just supposed to be. I
guarantee you there is some fan fiction out there where that fight goes very differently.
I think that's what it was. So he's pining for a mate, and Kirk is his opposition, and they fight each other, and then he comes out.
Is that the
amok time? Yeah. So I don't know. Here, Phlox cures it with an injection, and that's the end of it. gives her a chemical hysterectomy or something like that and just cures it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think there's so much more there you could do with it, and how it applies to her as a character, what you learn from her as a character, what she and Phlox learn from each other. Not like in the Bob Seger sense, but just like just generally about being characters together. Yeah, it's unfortunate that they just play it for, especially in an episode like this where neither one of the storylines are particularly headlining.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that they don't use this to do something more interesting character-wise. Because even if you consider the Archer story the A story, this still could have been a really engaging B plot if they had done something a little bit more interesting than what they did.
Yeah. I guess that's it for this one. I don't have anything else to say. We have a lot of patron thoughts, so maybe we'll just go through those and we can read them and come up with our own thoughts. So we'll take a break, play a clip from the episode, and then we'll come back, give our final thoughts, read the patron thoughts, and that'll be it for Bounty.
I see you made it back safely.
Do you think the Klingons know you gave me that lockpick?
I don't see why they would.
What are you going to do with your reward?
I'm not sure. If you know of an old freighter for sale.
I'll keep my eyes open.
Be careful, Captain. It's likely the Klingons will double their bounty.
I hope you won't be the one to collect it.
No promises.
Thank you very much for listening today to the podcast for Bounty. If you enjoyed the show and you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, patreon.com/thepenskyfile, and support us there. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff. This month we had Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Friday the 13th Part 2 is about to come out. What the hell else did we do? We did, there was a Bond movie, GoldenEye,
and
we did physical
consumption.
Yeah, we did the physical media
versus digital media.
So we had a whole bunch of stuff on Patreon this month, and there's all 80 plus podcasts that are available to you now if you want to sign up and look back in time at everything there.
More hours of podcasts than there were days in the month.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't even need to check to know that that's a fact.
It's not a leap year. It's definitely true. Yeah, patreon.com/thepenskyfile. If you want to go there, support the show, it's much appreciated. And as always, our Captain Tier supporters get a special thank you. Special thanks goes to Ben Douglas, Tarek Latif, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Michael Pond, Matthew Ross, Andrew Churlock, Cardinal Doomsday, Nathan Elliott, Samuel Custer, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergi, Grim Santo, Sean, Christian Pouch, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, Darth Mosk, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Vol 13 Hero, Russell Elge, Rune Bendler, HH28, Stefan Minton, Derek Zajac, Paul Roscoe, Jacob123, Point Extra G, Nick the Rat, Mike Harris, Grappler John Zorn, Eric Santuan, Kevin Lowry, Captain Brazen, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Soylent Blue, Zane Majors, Dave Davies, Retail, Olivier Pardeux, Worf's Tiny Brown Dix, Tom Hickey, and Jose Hunters. It's EW. I can't remember. This thing always cuts it off, and I can't see the full name. But thank you, Jose Hunter.
You know, I think we're in the market. We're about due for a new month, don't you think? It's been like what, 300 years. Mix it up a bit.
You want to change the Gregorian calendar or whatever it's called?
Yeah, take like 2 days. Take 2 days, trim 2 days off of every month, get yourself another like truncated, maybe like a short month, drop it in the middle of the year. I don't know. Just everybody have a good time.
Yeah.
Smarch.
Yeah.
Maybe.
March is the month without a holiday in it, right? That's why it's so awful. I think there's no, I think there's no official holiday in it.
It's coming off of the month with one fewer day than all the other ones. No days off.
Yeah, you get maybe it's March and April. There's no holiday in April either. I don't think you have to wait till Memorial Day,
Easter, if you recognize it.
Yeah, corporate America doesn't recognize Easter, so you don't get the day off.
It's a Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to wait till Memorial Day. So I think we're in the middle of a 2-month stretch. So yeah, we might as well smush March and April together, make the summer come even faster. That's it. Thank you very much. Patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Let's go to our patron thoughts now and see what people thought. Matt Ross says, Bounty, why the hell is there no security escorting the captain and chief engineer to the airlock with an unknown contact? And why is decon not next to the airlock? Yeah. Archer will aw shucks his way out of trouble with the Klingons and Bounty and yawn. And as to the meat, oh yeah. Brannon, get Blaylock to show some leg, make her sweaty, and let's get some interspecies exchange. What do you mean this is a family show? 2 sexy times out of 5. Eric McGowan says, Bounty, finally Clay's Rick Berman gets the episode he's always wanted, and doesn't Phlox's prudishness go against his
Not
portrayal?
quite. There's actually a different cut of the script that I fought very hard for, but I couldn't get it past the censors, unfortunately.
Brannon.
Lots of stand-ins. We used a lot of stand-ins for scenes that I shot at my house. Afterwards, Brannon would refuse to put them in.
Brannon, does DePaul prefer her scripts cut or uncut? Eric McGowan says, Phlox's prudishness, doesn't it go against his portrayal and stigma? Yes, it does. I think that's the critical flaw of this episode, besides the fact that the idea is terrible. Alex Martin says, we all knew this was coming since the pilot, and I'm actually surprised they waited 2 seasons to introduce Farr. Berman
That's
Braga,
a really good point, actually. This, I'm surprised they didn't drop this on episode 3 or something.
Yeah, I can kind of see this as a break glass in case of emergency storyline. Sure. And sure. I feel you have to go maybe a season, and then the second half where you're like, I'm just flat out of ideas. You break the glass then. Berman and Braga must have been itching to do this from day one, and it was all a bacterial infection so that we could have another go at it in the future. But sadly, Enterprise got canceled before the sequel episode featuring Hoshi and T'Pol trapped on a desert planet in heat. Oh, and there was some other plot going on with Archer, I think, but I forget. 2 massively cold Vulcan nipples out of 5. She could have broken out of the decon room by cutting through the glass. Poor Jolene Blaylock. She...
Not to sound crass, but I didn't really notice that. And I was really looking.
Yeah, I know.
No, I think they took the steps to protect her from overexposure. Let's put it that way.
It's all blue in post too. It's not actually cold in there. Latte Librarian says, Bounty.
The blue is what you're seeing watching it through Rick Berman's eyes. Everything's just really blue.
Serum bubbling up from the bottom. Latte Librarian says, wow, Julian Blaylock deserved hazard pay for having to act in this distressingly gross episode. It's like the writers decided that instead of a normal B-plot, they would just stick in their pervy T'Pol fanfiction. And please, for the love of all that is Trek, someone give the woman a whole shirt to wear when she's not on duty. 1 microbe out of 5.
Yeah. How come, excuse me. How come T'Pol, Phlox got to wear a bathing suit from the 20s in the decon chamber, but she had to come straight from her Maxim cover shoot with what the clothes they gave her there to do it.
Yeah, it's this weird. She's not wearing a bra. She's just wearing a little bit more fabric on a bra. Really, the bra is inappropriate for TV. She can't be wearing a bra. Give her a extremely high cut halter top and call it a day.
If you join the Patreon and listen to our coverage of Friday the 13th Part 2, there's a character in that movie who actually has a very similar wardrobe where she wears, it's clearly just that they wanted one character to dress in the most insanely sexual ways they could.
Yeah.
So all of her shirts she has one that's long sleeved, but then it's a cutoff right below the boobs.
Yeah. And
it's just the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. She has no shirts that reach her pant line. It's all just.
It's did you ever see
up?
Was it Bully? It's that movie Bully. Do you know the movie Bully with who's the director of Kids? You remember that Kids movie? Provocative director.
I remember it, but I don't remember the
I think
the name of the director.
Yeah, Bully. Bully is one where I think her name is Bijou Phillips, something like that. She's a teen in that movie. Who the only thing I remember about that movie is that her cutoff is cut so high that you can see the underside of her breasts underneath the shirt when she's just hanging around. So she's hanging out from beneath her shirt because of how high the halter top is. But that's the only thing I remember about that movie, obviously for good reason.
Anytime something like that comes around in movies or in life, I just remember back to the scene from Scrooged where the FCC person is trying to nix the solid gold dancers, claiming you could see their nipples through their costumes.
Yeah. And
the one worker guy is like, yeah, you could hardly see them nipples. And Bill Maher goes, and these guys are really looking.
Is there something else to say? Oh, Point Extra G says, I'm a straight male, but after seeing that nearly naked, sexy, smooth-skinned, denobulin demigod that is Dr. Phlox, I instantly know why T'Pol had to have her some, premature upon Farr or not. Honestly, though, is an interesting idea. Maybe she's not in Farr, and this is just the irresistible nature of Dr. Phlox. Honestly, though, the continual over-sexualization of Jolene Blaylock shows that the showrunners really were out of touch and had no idea who their core audience was or what they wanted. Clay's Berman impersonation sadly seems not so ridiculous in light of this episode. Oh yeah, Archer gets captured by the worst bounty hunter ever, and Robert O'Reilly shows up sans... Who's Robert O'Reilly in this? That's interesting. Sans crazy eyes.
That's who the Who song is about.
Yeah, it's a good... Robert Baba O'Reilly. We see Trip in charge for a bit. That's the only positive I got.
There is one shot of her in the decon chamber. I'm pretty sure whatever pose she's in, they realized they couldn't actually show because she's like arched forward with like her back out, and like the camera, you just like see her shoulders and her head and her feet in the background.
Yeah,
and it's like this ridiculous pose she like crawled her way into that I'm sure they were like, yeah, we can't put this on TV.
The line that sticks out to me is she says, she's like, I'm hungry. And he's like, we have food coming. She's like, not that kind of hungry.
She's hungry in the Def Leppard sense.
Give her inches and feed her well.
As the Scorpions would say.
The sexiest line of all time.
Fucking.
It's such imagine writing that.
when I finally listened, like when I listened to that song, and then I finally realized what the hell he was saying. I was like, that can't be it. That can't be what he says. The bitch is hungry. She needs to tell, Wes.
Give her inches and feed her well. It's the same with we were laughing when you did a song with we might probably mention this on the podcast. It was you're doing Eddie Money's take.
Oh yes.
Well, shaking. Yeah, the karaoke machine insisted that he was that Eddie Money's saying her tits are shaking.
Yeah, almost positive that is not the actual lyrics.
I don't think that's the line. But it was very funny to see the karaoke machine earnestly tell us that you have to sing her tits were shaking. Whoa. That's it. I thought I had something. No, there's something. Oh. Well, it's as good a place as any. We had a YouTube comment from someone who was complaining about our take on Blaylock. The hell was it? What were we talking about? We were talking about the over-sexualization of Jolene Blaylock in this. This person wrote paragraphs telling me why I'm probably homosexual. And I don't know, like I feel this is a good point for like the comment is silly as fuck, but it's like it might as well just put out something now to like explain why this is bad for this show. Because sure. I think the point starts there. Sexualization in art is not bad. There's nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with bodies or sex or anything like that. This is Star Trek. I don't know if this person's aware, but like Star Trek just doesn't have the skeletal structure to support this kind of stuff. It's remarkably unsexy. It's not a sexy show. It just can't handle it. And the T'Pol stuff sticks out, much as we said in the pilot, because it's in there for no reason, really. Right. Like even this episode, there's no reason, there's no good story reason why this is happening, outside of the fact that they think it's funny that Jolene Blaylock has to do this and T'Pol has to do it. And I'd be all for that thing I was talking about earlier, which is like T'Pol is the wanted character out of like all the other characters on the ship, but she doesn't respect it because she's Vulcan and doesn't think about things that way. It's just this. There's a time and a place for it, really. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but it's not appropriate to just put titillation into your show because it's a sign they have no idea what you're doing except for that, and it's the only thing that you can do to save yourself. Right,
and it's it's not like they ever do it with Hoshi, and I'm not saying that I think she also should be visually sexually exploited.
They did have that episode where her shirt got torn off, remember, and she covers herself up. She falls through the turbo lift or something. Yeah,
but my point is that it's it's clearly focused on one character and is not an aspect of the show. It's like it's not baked into the fabric of the show, like you're saying, where this isn't the Star Trek where everybody has relationships and sex is involved, right? It's just her, and she's the only one they put through these things, and it's never for any constructive reason, or story reason, except to like look at her ass, basically. And or they play it as a joke, and it's always the same. You know, it's a very juvenile way they handle it on the show. And I definitely think that they could have played it more adult, but they don't. And I think this episode is an example of how it feels like a bunch of kids kind of giggling about it.
Yeah.
You know? Whether it's or Archer falling face first into her boobs or something. It's very juvenile and very specific to Paul in a way that is not and I'm not saying it needs to just be the female characters. Like they never do this stuff with like Trip, really.
Mayweather would be the male character.
Yeah, they never do with male, although I mean they
might as well. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. I mean, I assume he's not on the show more, and because everybody else is embarrassed at how much better looking he is. But you know, it's like it's not
Mayweather.
It's not
Mayweather. Travis, take your shirt off and get us out of this nebula.
Yeah, these suits are way too tight, Cap. I need to just loosen up my arms a little bit. Do you never wear a shirt under your suit?
He's got Blaylock's halter top on underneath.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it's not part of the show. They're not doing it for any constructive reason other than the fact that they have a really attractive woman on the show that they're pointing the camera at in suggestive ways. It's funny to me.
Is it semi-acceptable? Would it be semi-acceptable to you if the joke, is this a joke? T'Pol is willing to do these things, and it is distracting. Is it better to do this where every time this has to happen to T'Pol, she is indifferent to what's going on and treats it clinically, where the male characters are very not put off, but they're very like awkward by it. Like it's because it is hard. It's harder on them really in some ways than it would be on T'Pol, because T'Pol is a Vulcan.
She shouldn't dress that way.
She's
just
too scandalously, but she shouldn't really care. Like T'Pol is indifferent to it. And the way that the show does it is the show takes advantage of that by just being like, well, T'Pol doesn't care, so she'll just do it. But I think a way to add depth to it is you show the male human's point of view and how riled up it gets them. You know, like it's that kind of a thing. And T'Pol, I think you just have to give T'Pol the character a little bit more control over it, so that it empowers her, and it's not just Jolene Blaylock taking off her clothes. It's more T'Pol is divorced from whatever this thing means to humans, and she does not care in any sense about it.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, is it doesn't feel like she has much agency when it comes to this stuff. And it's like it's an agency born of the creative process, if that makes sense, where it's like they're choosing to present her in a way that is exploitative, and are not making it part of her character or part of the thing, which innately takes away any agency she has over whether or not it's how she reacts to it. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. And I think I just think it needs to be more, if they're going to do it, you gotta commit to it and make it more equal opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know. One of the things that I always thought was hilarious, and I was like, man, it's about time they started doing this, was when I started watching the CW DC Comics shows. An episode doesn't go by without what's his name from Green Arrow taking off his shirt and doing like salmon ladders in full view of the camera. And like, they never do that with the women, and it's like, that's fine. It's about time for that to happen. But they don't handle that stuff well at this point in Star Trek. And I was going to say, I'm surprised that for as edgy as Discovery claims itself to be, they don't have any better of a handle on stuff.
No,
because I'm surprisingly, they don't do it at all. Like the only sex that has been in Discovery is
Klingon rape. Yeah.
Basic. Well, except for, I mean,
Mira Lorca had sex with that woman admiral too. That's
sure.
Yeah.
And Michael and Book got together, but it's like it's always it's not ever really part of the show. Michael and Book is the only time where like, a relationship like that has been part of the show.
Stamets and Culber, I guess. You know, it's the same point. It's the same point to you. It's that it's not important to them. Yeah,
I don't really count that because that's obviously they're in a relationship, but it's not the same sort of like sexual charge that you would get in an episode like this, where you've got two characters who are very clearly like headed in a certain direction. They don't do that on Discovery. I'm kind of surprised. Like they've got all those people on the ship, and seemingly the only people who are in a relationship are Stamets and Culber.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of surprised that they've never gotten into that at all.
Yeah.
For all the other blood and guts and swears they throw around, they still don't seem to be able to broach the topic of most relationships.
The sex barrier is still tough for them. It is true. I don't know why they can't.
And I'm not saying that would make the show better. I'm just surprised. I'm surprised that they haven't done it.
Kyle Barrett says, I thought Voyager did Ponfar poorly when they treated it with the same warped moralistic gusto that TNG treated the Prime Directive. Whereas TNG would rather see an entire civilization wiped out than find out about aliens, Voyager would prefer the Vulcans die from extreme horniness than let a crew member have sex with them. This episode is even worse because Phlox doesn't even cite ethical concerns over the idea, but rather he's just so prudish he puts T'Pol's life in danger, which is a completely contrary characterization for the previously sexually adventurous Doctor. There's a good Ponfar episode tackling the issue of consent yet to be made, maybe if the Discovery writers ever grow a backbone, but this isn't it at all. Instead, reveling in the provocative aspects with cringy results. Phlox should have just whipped out his big blue dick and split T'Pol open like a coconut. 2 out of 5. It's true.
Holy shit.
It's the fix. It's yeah, I mean, there is an idea in this about consent.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the trouble with it is that even in this episode, T'Pol is aware of what she's doing when she's in her state. It's sort of bizarre that she doesn't remember things at the end of it.
I thought that was weird too. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like the kind of event, like even when it's happening, she's aware of what's happening to her. And it doesn't seem like she should just wake up the next day and be like, I don't remember anything that happened there. I understand what Kyle means by there's a consent issue there, and it's the drunk thing that we were talking about, but the way they've portrayed it so far doesn't really line up with consent because they're in total control of what they're doing, it seems. They're driven, but they're not like incapacitated or anything. I don't know if this is hinting at it.
I think I'm wondering if the fact that she doesn't remember stuff seems to be the driving factor as to why you would have Phlox be so prudish about it.
But he doesn't know that until the very end.
Right. It seems like it's a writing problem more than anything else because it's like there's if she is of sound if she is as sound mind as one can be in the midst of Ponfar and remembers everything, then I think it gets a little bit more gray. But as soon as you establish at the end there that I still think it doesn't help the way that they play it out because she doesn't, like I said, she doesn't remember anything. And then she asks what happened and he's like, oh, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
You know, that's not any better than if they had them actually have sex.
But it's still, you still have this problem of it's necessary to save her life to do something. You know, It's not just... It's not just they lose their minds and become uncontrollably horny and black out. Basically, it's like if you don't do something about it, she will die. So there's no good reason not to do something about it. I don't know. It is strange. Thank you, Kyle. Jose Hunter's EWNF remixes. There's the full name. Bounty. It was okay. Kago, the name of the character played by Robert O'Reilly, translates from Spanish to I defecate. I still don't know who Kago is. Who the hell's Kago?
Is he the main Tellarite?
Let me see here.
Out there in the fields.
Skalar is the main
fighting
one.
for his meals.
Jordan Lund plays him. Kago is the other bounty hunter. The little alien, the funny alien guy.
The guy from He-Man, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Robert
He
Riley.
seems like someone who puts his back into his living, for sure.
Yeah. I just like when they chime in with him, he's trying to fix his ship and he's just like carrying big triangle things. Makeup appliances have come a long way from the original series to Enterprise. For evidence, compare the Tellarites from this episode to TOS's Journey from Babel. 3 Modi operanduses out of 5. Yeah, the Tellarite makeup looks a lot better than it did in Journey to Babel, obviously. They don't just look like pig masks stretched over someone's head. Cardinal Doomsday says, bounty is a shit sandwich with extra decon gel. The only bounty I want is the chocolate bar with the coconut inside. Am I missing that reference? Is there a chocolate bar in this?
That's a Mounds bar.
Oh, maybe he is Australian or he is over there on the other side. So maybe they have different names for Almond Joy or whatever you'd call it at this point. Mm-hmm. I hope Julian Blaylock got extra pay for this garbage. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. 1 Clay's Rick Berman's impressions out of 5.
I think you got at least 5 of them. 5 out of 5 of those in this episode.
Yeah. That's mixing metaphors. Yeah, what is it Mounds that has the coconut? I like the Almond Joy,
Mounds,
I think, right?
They both do.
Yeah.
The only difference is Almond Joy also has almonds.
What's your favorite candy bar?
My favorite candy bar, if you put a gun to my head, is probably Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, if that counts as a candy bar. If it doesn't count as a candy bar, honestly, I don't know. Because I kind of go it depends on my...
Is there any candy bar you say, I don't want that fucking thing?
Not really.
I'll eat a Mars bar, but I won't really love it.
I don't... We talking like British Mars bar?
Isn't the Mars bar the one with the nougat inside? Isn't that
okay.
Yeah.
Like a Milky Way?
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Milky Way. Yeah, Milky Way. I don't like a Milky Way.
What about Snickers? Because Snickers is just a Milky Way with peanuts in it.
I like Snickers better. It's got a little bit of crunch.
Why do I have this much working knowledge of candy?
It's a little better. My favorite's Butterfinger.
Yeah,
I'll always have a Butterfinger.
Yeah, I was big into Three Musketeers for a while, like years ago. And Heath Bar. I like Heath Bars a lot too.
Heath Bars are really good. Underrated.
Yeah.
Heath Bar is number 1 underrated candy. I like crispy caramel toffee or whatever
Also,
it is.
big fan of Caramellos.
Yep.
The Cadbury ones. Yeah.
Whatchamacallits? You remember Whatchamacallits?
Yeah. I don't actually know if I ever had one of those.
I remember the ads more than the candy. Huge ad run in the mid 90s for whatchamacallits.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the 100 grand bar got a lot of push in the 90s as well too.
Yep. I like that one too. Royo says, Bounty, leave it to Enterprise to make an episode.
You know what I don't really care for? I've never been a big Baby Ruth fan.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Baby Ruth seems like, you know how you can make like hash out of the pieces of meat that you don't really have anything to, it seems like a candy hash where it's like, we get a bunch of peanuts and chocolate and shit mix. Let's form it into the shape of a shit and then put it in and sell it. Name it after a baseball player.
That's capitalism, baby. Yeah, I think now I'm just being reminded of all the candy bars. The one I've grown out of is I used to love Paydays as a kid.
Sure.
And now I don't find them that appealing, really. And you can't get any easier of a candy bar than just we lay out some caramel and stick peanuts all over it and then give it to you.
Also, like if I'm in like a pretty like straightforward mood, Nestle's Crunch, can't go wrong with a good Nestle's Crunch bar.
Yeah. Royo says, leave it to Enterprise to make an episode about bounty hunting boring and irritating. Archer tries to weasel out of the bounty by being as aggravating as possible by talking the bounty hunter's ear off, but unsurprisingly, this does not make for great television. And if the premise of bounty hunting wasn't squandered enough, Archer ends up getting away because the Klingons aren't smart enough to actually pay their bounties. You would think the Klingons might actually respect bounty hunters as great warriors, but then that would mean that Archer is doomed, so Rick Berman and Brannon Braga write the Klingons as too stupid to accomplish anything to save the day. Too often, the consequences of Archer's incompetence are negated by the greater incompetence of his foes. 1/2 out of 5.
I think one of the things this show had an opportunity to do but didn't really fall through on is to make the Klingons scary.
Yeah.
Again. That's some more like, teeth. Not that they need any more teeth, am I right? But yeah, they just kind of, they don't really do much with them other than just kind of use them in these stories that come along. Like they're no harder to fight or anything. Or,
no,
you know.
or I feel like the actors react as though Klingon space is a bad place to go, but when the Klingons show up, they're the typical goofy Klingons from TNG. You know, where it's like,
Yes.
fuck these guys. Like, who cares about them? I think they featured them too much. I would definitely have they are extremely violent and appear sort of like very quickly in certain episodes, and you don't really ever get a good sense of what the Klingons are before you're chased away or your ship is blown up or something like that. But yeah, I agree that the Klingons are just not intimidating enough. And also, did they avoid the Klingon ship at the end of this? Does the Enterprise not run into the Klingon ship? It runs into
do.
Do they?
Yeah. They kind of zip because Archer shoots himself off in the
the pod. Yeah, that's the
and then Enterprise comes around and starts like pecking at it with its little lasers and stuff until
I don't. Yeah, that's not right. And so they grapple the pod and pull them in. Nick the Rat says, Phlox seems to be either totally open sexually or a complete stick in the mud. He could have been a stick in T'Pol's mud, but he passed up the opportunity. The moistness stripping...
I don't know if that counts as Farr ending if you put the stick in the mud.
It's another question that the episode is just not capable of answering. The moistness dripping down her back to her butt crack getting larger and larger in each scene was the tops. I can watch her rubbing green jelly on her thighs all day. I give this one a 6 out of 9. You didn't write that that YouTube comment. I actually know you didn't. Grappa John Zorn says, Enterprise demonstrates the depth of its script writing with a subtly layered exploration of the Buddhist path and the perils of attachment. Both T'Pol and Scalar long for something they cannot have. Scalar for his lost ship, symbolizing the glories of his youth, and T'Pol for some of that sweet Phlox meat, symbolizing, fuck it, I can't do it. This episode is crap. Cut the B-plot entirely. The episode loses nothing and gains some desperately needed dignity. 1 Darsek out of 5.
I don't know if I would agree with that, only because I don't think you'd gain anything by cutting the B plot. Because again, which one is the B plot?
Yeah.
Neither one of them really has much weight to them, so it's difficult to say if one or the other is more important to the story, to the show.
Tom Hickey says, I'm not sure which is worse, the aimless insights into the clinical presentation of unscheduled Farr, or how neither of the plots felt like an acceptable break from the boredom of the other. Fortunately for Archer, everyone his Uber driver comes across as a big jerk. Otherwise, I don't see how he gets out of here alive. If they'd all treated the Tellarite with a bit more respect, Archer's back in Klingon hands and most likely executed. Best line of the episode, you're disturbing my serum. Less than or equal to a 2 out of 5. And last comment, Captain Brazen says, Bounty, more like booty, a typo on Berman's part. Depending on who you are, this is the best erotic decon fanfiction.
Actually, I wanted to call it bouncy. But my finger slipped and I hit a T by accident.
Always punching those T's. This is the best erotic decon fanfiction ever, or it's the worst Berman Braga erotic fanfiction because nobody fucks. T'Pol going all crazy for Phlox is what I'd do if I was in heat. It's the only way to get to the wives. Now looking at T'Pol going through Farr acting the most thirsty bitch ever, whoring herself to any male she can find makes Spock look like a fucking saint or a complete dipshit for not screwing Nurse Chapel. I've never seen this episode of Enterprise before, and I will most likely never see it again. 1 Malcolm wishing he could have sex with T'Pol instead of saving himself for his pineapple out of 5.
You know,
Malcolm's the real loser in this one, yeah.
Although I did enjoy Malcolm because as she's like rubbing all over his spacesuit, I was reading on his face, if only no one had told me what was going on and I could just plead ignorance here. But he's like, damn it, I can't do it. But it did occur to me that they did have that one episode where everybody goes to Ryza and Hoshi's the only person that actually gets laid.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's even there, it's played as all the sex stuff is played as a joke. It's not really taken very seriously.
Yeah, which is appropriate for Ryza, I think. I like the sort of Star Trek does better in the comedy of errors and no one gets laid except for Hoshi, the one who doesn't go down there with the expectation that that's going to happen. Like that feels like a Star Trek approach to sex. Not that episode is good, but it's there's only some ways that they can approach the topic here for this series, and this isn't one of them. That's it. Thank you, patrons, for your thoughts about Bounty. Clay, final thoughts about this one. What are you going to give it on our scale of 1 to 5?
Man, I don't know. Because again, I mean, it still falls into that thing where it's like it's not. I wouldn't say it's not a badly constructed or made episode. Everything looks good. It's directed well. The performances are good.
Scripts don't have problems, quote unquote.
Right.
In them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not really. They're just kind of middling. I guess a 3. I don't know. What are you going to give it?
I'm going to give it a 2 with the idea that it fits into my definition of a 2, which is that a script that just needs, it's just missing. So like there's just some problem with it, that it's just not up to snuff to be average. I just feel that the farr thing is completely underutilized. If the entire episode was Archer's storyline, it's a 3 to me. Mm-hmm. I think the farr thing is just so weak and a waste of a shot that it's a 2 for me, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I'd also go a 2 because I think the biggest problem for me is that they've got 2 stories that get almost equal time and neither one of them stands out as being worth the time it's given.
Yeah. All right, we'll give it 2 3s, or 2 2s, sorry, for the penultimate episode, Bounty, of Star Trek Enterprise's 2nd season. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. You can go to patreon.com/thepensky-file if you want to support the show. Patreon.com/thepensky-file. We put up a whole bunch of stuff this month. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, GoldenEye, talked about physical media. Friday the 13th part 2 is up there tomorrow. It'll go up on Friday, so tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That's it. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Next week, we've got a new Rotten Horror Picture Show. I think it is our next wild card, which is a movie called A Dark Song.
Is that right? I feel like you said something different last week. Maybe I'm wrong.
Hold on one second.
I thought you said something with an S, and I know song has an S, but I thought it was... Maybe I'm wrong in this case.
Just waste some time here.
I think it's something like slice. Is that wrong?
No, it is not slice.
Is it juice?
It's not juice. It is not. It's not the. It's not famous Italian slasher movie Slice from 1969.
Well, maybe it is that then what you said. I just thought it was something else, but I guess I could be wrong.
If my computer works, I'll pull it up here in a second. But we'll be back with part 3 of Friday the 13th in March. Which is going to be fun. And now,
do you want to give people a tease for what you think about part 2? And just say one sentence thing. Is 2 better than 1? Isn't there a thing that people think that 2 is better than 1?
People really like to. Oh, it's Your Next. Your Next is the next one.
Okay.
Sorry,
so I was wrong, but right at the same time.
I could have sworn we had already done Your Next. Because
you have done Your Next, haven't you?
Maybe I flipped them. So
this is riveting. Let me go to the Penske file.
If it's not Your Next, it's A Dark Song.
Okay. Your Next was before Scream.
Yes. Yeah. I must have them. I have them flipped on my list. Part 2, Friday the 13th, part 2 is the first appearance of Jason with a better. It's got a better protagonist, but Jason is very unrefined as a concept. Let's put it that way.
He has a bag on his head in this one.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Does he ever wear the hockey mask in 2?
Nope. He doesn't get the hockey mask till the 3rd one.
Okay. Wow.
The bag is, my biggest problem with the 2nd one is it's way too clean. Like they spend a lot of time talking about how Jason is this mountain man who's been growing up in the woods and stuff, but he looks like he just bought his outfit out of like a Carhartt car catalog. Yeah. Like the bag he's wearing on his head, if it didn't have a hole for his eye, they could have kept it. If they kept the receipt, they could have brought it back.
Do they show what he looks like under the bag?
Yes.
Briefly, they do.
Yeah.
Right. And he's deformed or something, isn't he? He looks like a little like troll.
Yes. Yeah, he's deformed, but he's got like Wolverine sideburns. So he's got like a beard up to about his chin and then like his weird eye and like really long stringy hair and stuff.
All right. You guys can check that out. Check that out at patreon.com/thepensky-file. And then You'll be sorry, Silent Night. Is that what you said for the next horror?
No, a Dark Song.
Dark Song,
which is the next wild card pick. It's it's an Irish movie about two people trying to do a magical ritual, and it's done very.
This is Amanda's pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very intense movie that doesn't take what it takes to do this magical spell very lightly. And Amanda does realize, I think, at the end that all of her wild card picks have been about two people locked in a single location for
as you do. Yeah. Once you find something.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the pandemic eking through or what. But.
All movies are just two people 6 feet apart from each other talking at each other.
And sometimes one of them is going through Pond Farr.
Mm-hmm. You can only hope. This could have been our COVID episode. Instead, it's not. It's Bounty. We both give it a 2. That's it. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next time.